everybody. Oh, I love it. Call and response. Thank you very much. Um, okay, 1 second. Can you hear me now? A little bit better? Great. There, you really can hear me. So, good evening. I'm Kim Goff Cruz, Secretary and Vice President for University Life here at Yale. And it is my honor to, on behalf of the university, welcome you to this special event. Here in the audience, I know there are many of you who are joining us by live stream, so welcome. We are commemorating today the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King. And I want to start by just acknowledging a remarkable group of people who actually have created this program today. They're responsible for the planning tonight. And I want to acknowledge in particular our program committee, who are members, community members from New Haven, Yale staff, faculty, and of course students. So if you could stand, we want to start off by thanking you for creating this moment for us to share. So if you could stand and I'll acknowledge you. Yes. And you'll meet them. A special thanks to our co-chairs, Maurice Harris and Tasha Hawthorne. They will be on the program. But I also want to thank our donors, and our donors are people who are working with us today to make this happen, the Schwarzman Center and the Yale College Dean's Office as well. So we want to thank them as well. Everyone's saying, yes, thank you. So I want to begin with a story. Maybe you heard it. Hopefully you have. Maybe you even saw the movie. We're now in the midst of World War II. Just imagine yourself in the midst of World War II, and a U.S. battalion has landed in Europe, and it is the only Women's Army Corps unit of color to serve overseas in that war. Their mission: resolve a massive, really massive backlog of undelivered mail for American troops. Now, despite facing segregation and second-class treatment, these women really excelled. They processed years' worth of mail in just months, a task that seemed all but impossible when they began. So when the troops finally received those long-awaited letters and packages from their loved ones, morale was greatly improved, both on the front and at home, thanks to the efforts of this group, who were known as the 6888. Now, they returned home a year later to zero fanfare. So the movie was incorrect in that way. As time went on, their contributions were largely forgotten. Until decades later, Colonel Edna Cummings told their story. She led a grassroots campaign to honor them, and the 6888 received long overdue recognition finally. And the public had a new understanding of what service could and can look like. So we're fortunate today to have Colonel Edna Cummings with us this evening. A U.S. Army veteran, a longtime civil rights advocate, she is a champion of opportunity and representation within the armed forces and beyond. And in the tradition of Dr. King, she promotes justice, equality, and community. She lifts up those who have been overlooked. And she shares a really expansive vision for society, knowing that we can achieve more together than we can alone. This vision and her story resonate here in New Haven and at Yale. In our community are innovators and problem solvers and storytellers, people envisioning a better world, working together, committed to excellence. Our shared future will be built through deep connection. Our great successes will come through genuine partnership. And so tonight, as we celebrate Dr. King's legacy, we are grateful for the chance to learn from Colonel Cummings. We are all in for a treat as we hear her story, and later to hear her in conversation with New Haven's own Babs Rawls-Ivy. Very excited for that. Yes, we are. All right, but first, a couple of pieces of business. We want to do our land acknowledgement, so I'm going to call up some students to do that. And then we want to do what we always do, which is to have and welcome to our stage one of Yale's premier undergraduate a cappella groups. It is their music that celebrates the depth and the complexity of the Black experience. They are Shades of Yale. And when we have the land acknowledgement right after that, they will come up, and then we will begin the rest of the program. So thank you. Our students are coming up for the land acknowledgement.
Thank you all for coming. My name is Jamard, and I'm a sophomore in Davenport College studying political science, and I'm one of the students on the MLK Commemoration Committee.
And I'm Nicole Manning. I'm a junior in Berkeley College studying political science and doing the Education Studies Intensive program, and I'm another student on the MLK Commemoration Committee.
And we both also serve as peer liaisons with the Afro-American Cultural Center at Yale. I will be giving the land acknowledgement. We at Yale University want to take a moment to acknowledge the lands on which we are settled upon. We are coming from many places today, and we want to acknowledge the ancestral homelands and traditional territories of indigenous peoples who have been here and are still here. We acknowledge that indigenous peoples and nations, including the Mohegan, Mashantucket Pequot, Eastern Pequot, Schaghticoke, Golden Hill Bagusset, Niantic, the Quinnipiac, and other Algonquian-speaking communities, have stewarded through generations the lands and waterways of what is now called the state of Connecticut. Solidarity is an ongoing project, and our goal is to build kinship with Native peoples across the Americas and across the globe. We also acknowledge that this country and this university is built on the enslaved labor of generational African Americans, and to that end, we celebrate the African diaspora, Black life, Black knowledge, and Black joy.
Now I'm proud to introduce Shades of Yale. Founded in 1988, Shades is a Yale University's only mission-based a cappella group singing music of the African diaspora and African American tradition. Please stand for the Black National Anthem.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring. Ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise towards the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea.
Sing a song full of the faith that the darkness has taught us.
Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun, let us march on till victory is won.
Hello. Thank you all so much for having us here this evening. We have two more songs for you. First is Wanting Memories, and the second will be a medley of Amen and We Shall Overcome. Thank you.
I'm sitting here wanting memories to teach me to see the beauty in the world through my own eyes. I am sitting here wanting memories to teach me to see the beauty in the world through my own eyes. You used to rock me in sitting here wanting memories to teach me to see the beauty in the world through my own eyes. Since you've gone and left me, there's been so little beauty, but I know I saw it clearly through your eyes. Now the world outside is such a cold and bitter place. Here inside I have few things that will console. And when I try to hear your voice above the storms of life, then I remember all the things that I was told. I am sitting here wanting memories to teach me to see the beauty in the world through my own eyes. I am sitting here wanting memories to teach me to see the beauty in the world through my own eyes. I think all the things that made me feel so wonderful when I was young. I think all the things that made me laugh, made me dance, made me sing. I think all the things that made me grow into a being full of pride. I think on these things, for they are true. I am sitting here wanting memories to teach me to see the beauty in the world through my own eyes. I thought that you were gone, but now I know you're with me. You are the voice that whispers all I need to hear. I know a please, a thank you, and a smile will take me far. I know that I am you and you are me and we are one. I know that who I am is numbered in each grain of sand. I know that I am blessed again and over again. I am sitting here wanting memories to teach me to see the beauty in the world through my own eyes. I am sitting here wanting memories to teach me to see the beauty in the world through my own eyes. Be strong, 'cause we shall overcome. Someday, we shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. Someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe that we shall overcome someday. Someday, sisters and brothers, we shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. Someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe that we shall overcome we shall overcome.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Maurice Harris, Deputy Director of Yale Schwarzman Center and a co-chair of the 2026 MLK Commemoration Committee. Thank you to Shades of Yale for that beautiful performance. Yes. And thank you again to Secretary Goff Cruz for grounding us so powerfully in the story and spirit of tonight's theme, repairing the record, building connection. In many ways, that work is about both memory and responsibility, whose contributions we honor, whose stories we preserve, and how we choose to recognize service, especially when excellence has been met with silence or erasure. And it is about what becomes possible when we tell fuller truths and build community from them. It is in that spirit that I'm honored to introduce our keynote speaker, Colonel Edna W. Cummings, a distinguished U.S. Army veteran, consultant, advocate, and storyteller whose leadership has helped ensure that the contributions of underrecognized heroes are preserved in our national memory. Colonel Cummings was the first Black woman commissioned through Appalachian State University's ROTC program, and she went on to serve a highly decorated 25-year military career. Over those years, she held leadership posts that included Georgetown University ROTC, the Pentagon, and NORAD U.S. NORTHCOM in Colorado Springs. After retiring from the Army, she continued to serve the public through federal initiatives in Homeland Security and information technology, and she currently serves as an Army Reserve Ambassador for Maryland, continuing to champion opportunity and representation within and beyond the armed forces. Colonel Cummings is also renowned for her role in securing long overdue recognition for the 688 Central Postal Directory Battalion, the only Women's Army Corps battalion of all Black women and women of color deployed overseas during World War II. As Secretary Goff Cruz shared, their work was extraordinary, their impact was profound, and yet for decades their story was too often overlooked. Through Colonel Cummings' persistent advocacy and national leadership, the 6888 ultimately received the Congressional Gold Medal in 2022, a historic step in repairing the record and expanding our shared understanding of service, equity, and community. You may also know this story through documentary work, including the one entitled The 6888, which helped bring these histories to broader audiences. And last spring, Colonel Cummings published her memoir, A Soldier's Life, tracing her own journey and the work that has defined so much of her public service. So tonight, we're fortunate not only to learn from Colonel Cummings' story, but also to hear her reflect on what it means to tell the truth about our past in order to build a more just and connected future. Please join me in welcoming our keynote speaker for the 2026 MLK Commemoration, Colonel Edna W. Cummings.
Wow. First of all, this moment is surreal. Thank you so much for inviting me back. I was here in November for Veterans Day, and I do appreciate the opportunity to come and just expand the conversation from the one I started in November. But foremost, to the Shades of Yale, oh my gosh, the hard act to follow. Ms. Goff Cruz, the staff in the Office of the Secretary and Vice President for University Life, the MLK Program Committee, faculty and staff, Yale, distinguished guests, New Haven community, and the online audience. I don't think I left anyone out. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I want to use these next few minutes to just give some reflections and insight about the impact of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And it's even more crucial because this year, 2026, we celebrate 250 years of independence, America 250. And I personally view Dr. King's legacy as one that embodies the foundation of our democracy. The Declaration of Independence starts out with a powerful message and enduring. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men, which is inclusive, are created equal, and that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Equality and civil liberties are at the foundation of the Declaration of Independence, and that's what we are celebrating 250 years of. But honoring Dr. King also reminds me of a phrase in the preamble to the Constitution that I had to learn in grade school: to form a more perfect union. And that legacy is almost like a statement that embodies Dr. King's legacy, the more perfect union. Because back when the Constitution was written, it was evident that things would change over and over again. And I consider that as our ultimate goal, is to form a more perfect union. Every day we want to get better and better, where we strive to repair inequities and build and sustain those connections to shape our generation's legacy and strengthen our communities. So achieving a more perfect union is iterative, meaning that it requires a lot of hard work. And just think of it as a system upgrade. We are always upgrading who we are, what we are, and what it means. And more perfect is also subjective because the interpretation of perfect rests with those in authority. So what does perfect look like? And perfect is different for everyone. But as a veteran and someone who was raised in a military family, first of all, how many veterans are in the audience? Okay. Any Marines? I always like to pick out Marines because I bring crayons sometimes for them, but that's another story. Let me get back on track here. Veteran family members, if your family members serve. So that's, if I could keep on, if you know a veteran, that would be everyone in the audience because you know me. But as a veteran and someone who was raised in a military family, I consider Dr. King as a powerful warrior. He didn't serve, but he worked diligently toward that more perfect. But he was a warrior who did not bear arms while engaging in the ongoing battle for respect and dignity for marginalized citizens. His goals were to build those connections, and so those connections and that community could carry his message and connect citizens to the nation to give people a voice to be seen and to be heard. And I also believe that the events in military communities during that time fueled his passion for civil rights. And since the Revolutionary War, again, we celebrate 250 years of American independence, but we had people fighting for independence long before then. But since the Revolutionary War, women and people of color have served with dignity and respect. And even when their nation did not serve them, they served and fought for basic respect and civil rights. And I've had the opportunity to speak with several World War II veterans from the Women's Army Corps, the 6888. And most of you are familiar with the 6888, but they restored reliable mail service and improved troop morale that led to our Allied victory. But during the interviews, when they were asked why did they serve, most responded with the same answer. We wanted to do our part to protect America. America is our home. Regardless of race and gender, many veterans have that response and that ultimate connection. We want to protect our home. America is our home. And delving deeper into the intersectionality of the military and the quest for civil rights during the 40s and 50s, I did a lot of research for my book and while working to bring recognition for the 6888. And many members of the military during that time were arrested for violating segregation policies regarding seating in bus terminals and on buses. And I'd like to share some of these stories with you, some of these unknown stories. In 1945, 3 African-American members of the Women's Army Corps were beaten by police officers for sitting in the waiting room for whites only at the Greyhound bus station in Elizabethtown, Kentucky. One of the women, Private First Class Helen Smith of Syracuse, New York, was taken to jail for bleeding from her injuries and spent a week in the hospital recovering. 2 of the other women were also beaten. When they finally arrived at their duty station at Fort Knox, Kentucky, officials lectured them about obeying segregation laws pertaining to public buildings and transportations. They were court-martialed or charged, but what's interesting, they were defended by a military attorney, Lieutenant Robert W. Mean. He later worked for Justice Thurgood Marshall, and the women were found innocent. And in 1944, a Black Army lieutenant signed to the historic and segregated 761st Tank Battalion, nicknamed the Black Panthers, at Camp Hood, Texas, was court-martialed for sitting next to a white female passenger on the bus. Charges brought against the lieutenant involved 6 violations of the Articles of War: insubordination, disturbing the peace, conduct unbecoming an officer, insulting a civilian woman, and refusing to obey a lawful order of a superior officer. Eventually, the charges against the lieutenant were dismissed. And in 1945, Lieutenant Jackie Robinson signed a minor league club in Montreal, a farm team for the Brooklyn Dodgers. So that black lieutenant was the baseball great Jackie Robinson. And in 1952, Sarah Keyes was a member of the Women's Army Corps. She refused to give up her seat on a state-to-state charter bus, prompting a landmark case called Sarah Keyes versus Carolina Coach Company. And that's the Interstate Commerce Commission that outlawed segregation of black passengers in buses traveling across state line. Her attorney was a former member of the Women's Army Corps, Captain W. Johnson. And there is a movie on Tubi about W. Johnson, and also an endowed scholarship at Spelman in her honor. But along with these incredible stories, I could go on telling some of these stories about the veterans. I want to provide another example of how the military was instrumental in one of the key civil rights actions. And in 1941, 14 years before her arrest at the Montgomery bus boycott, Rosa Parks worked as a civilian airwoman at what was then known as Maxwell Field. And public spaces on the military base, is now Maxwell Air Force Base, they were not racially segregated. Rosa Parks says, "You might just say Maxwell opened my eyes up. It was an alternative to the ugly policies of Jim Crow. When I left the base," referring to Maxwell, "I had to ride home on a segregated bus. She would leave Maxwell, go outside the gates to Montgomery, and ride the segregated bus." And what I like about the Rosa Parks story at Maxwell is that it resulted in repairing of the record at Maxwell Air Force Base by retired Air Force Colonel Aries Menser, a friend of mine, one of my friends. She oversaw a sculpture honoring Rosa Parks. It's now at Maxwell. And there's a replica of that sculpture in front of the Rosa Parks Museum. Decades later, Colonel Aries Maxwell decided to repair that record and give Rosa Parks her respect that she earned while she was at Maxwell as a catalyst for the civil rights movement. Now in 1999, 44 years after the Montgomery bus boycott, Congress passed legislation to award Rosa Parks the nation's highest civilian honor, the Congressional Gold Medal, for her pivotal role. And the Congressional Gold Medal, what's interesting about it, and I didn't know this until I started working on it, it, yes, requires a lot of work and time, but it's bipartisan, meaning both chambers of Congress have to agree. And so Congress agreed that it was the right thing to do to give Rosa Parks the Congressional Gold Medal. The first medal of that type, the Congressional Gold Medal, was given to General George Washington in 1776 when he was general for the Continental Army. And in 2004, 22 years after his death, Congress passed legislation to award Dr. Martin Luther King and his wife, Ms. Coretta Scott King, the Congressional Gold Medal for their pivotal roles in the civil rights movement, recognizing their fights against segregation through nonviolent civil disobedience. And you heard almost 8 decades after World War II, Congress passed legislation for the 688. And I'd like to pause for a moment to recognize Sheila Kearney. She's in the audience. Her aunt, Sheila, stand up. Her aunt was in the 688 and is in the historic photo. Her aunt is in the historic photo behind Charity Adams, and for decades, that photo was represented as Abby Noel Campbell when it was actually Mary Kearney from Bridgeport, Connecticut. But the 688 history has been hailed, and I think and embraced, as an example of hidden history that has been reshaped and reframed, and it has repaired how World War II history is told. I served for over 25 years. I didn't know about the 688 when I was on active duty. And I learned about the unit just, by going on the internet, reading, and it popped in my feed one day around 2015. But what's interesting about the 688 and the women from Connecticut, there are 10 women from Connecticut, and of the 10 women, two of those women are buried at Normandy American Cemetery in France. Normandy has more than 9,000 graves, 130 plus African Americans, 5 African Americans on the wall they're missing. There are 4 women buried at Normandy, 3 are from the 688, and 2 are from Connecticut, PFC Mary Barlow and Sergeant Dolores Brown. They're from Hartford. But I share these stories about veterans and their role in civil rights because a lot of these veterans came home and took the leadership lessons and everything that they had learned and brought it back to their communities and built those connections. And I also cited the Congressional Gold Medal because it takes decades sometimes to repair a record. So that's one lesson that we have to take away from the advocacy and the efforts, patience. In 1983, Martin Luther King Jr. holiday became a federal holiday when President Reagan signed it into law. And it took almost 17 years for it to become a federal holiday in all 50 states. 17 years. So the record can be repaired, but we have to build those connections, plant the seed, and let others carry the message forward. And we have to be, of course, consistent. As I mentioned earlier, our nation's history is filled with stories of courage and resilience and acts that haven't been recognized. But all of these acts have worked sometimes in silence towards that more perfect union, that more perfect society. And every family in this room, in the viewing audience, has a legacy. Sometimes you just have to ask. And some of you have probably talked to people in your family and you've come away with, grandma, grandpa, aunt, uncle, whomever, I didn't know you did that. So I encourage you to talk to the people in your family and learn their legacy, because we'll never know the impact of these stories until they're told. And as I wrote my book and worked on the 688's advocacy, something hit me, and I heard someone else say, so this isn't original, but I am leveraging what I heard. The goal is to shift from regarding all of these stories as history. Let's regard it as our heritage, because heritage is a lot more personal than history. Heritage is part of that, our own foundation. The stories in your families, in your communities, that's part of your heritage. It's more than history. And a shared heritage is unifying, and people can connect to it and relate to it, and it ultimately repairs and strengthens the historical record. Now, once we've told the great stories, what do we do with them? Who decides what stories get told and what stories are not told, and how long that they last in a domain that's accessible? Sometimes it depends on the storyteller and how people connect to the story. Now, as a first-time author, I appreciate you mentioning my book. I maintained a spreadsheet of rejection emails. I queried publishers and agents, and it was just something I did once a week just for kicks, because I was told that, oh, you don't have a personality, it's boring, we don't get it. But I just kept having those conversations, and eventually I did get a yes. And also in the early days of advocating for the 688, I wasn't always received in a warm and welcoming manner. And it just didn't come. The people actually in Congress are very welcoming. They don't say no, they just don't respond. This is not aimed at anyone in particular. But it's the persistence, and it was a grassroots effort. We just had a lot of people. We gave them talking points and said, here, share the story your way on your platform, and that's how we were able to be successful. If you have a cause or story or something that you're passionate about, don't be discouraged by the no's and the naysayers. Stick with it and as a minimum, consider yourself as someone who's planted seeds for the next generation. Several years ago, I had the opportunity to speak with former Ambassador Prudence Bushnell, who was the Deputy Assistant Secretary for African Affairs during the genocide in Rwanda. And she shared with me a piece of advice that has always resonated. She says, don't try to change the world, just change your part. And I invite and encourage everyone to look beyond the commemorations and the monuments, which is great. It's a tangible evidence, but institutionalize the service to others. Many people don't have the opportunities or access, and it doesn't have to be a great feat, just a simple act. As an example, I can honestly say in the past 8 years that I've worked with the 6888 families, organizations, universities, I'm overjoyed, I truly am, to see the number of scholarships in honor of these women. Academic institutions at all levels can assist you or someone you know in honoring a family legacy or someone or something that you think is important. I mean, beginning at the grade school levels, there are scholarships. And I'm sure for any students in the audience, every little bit helps. And Yale did not tell me to mention donations, so, but it's true. And I've witnessed how the 6888 scholarships the scholarships have expanded the 6888's history because the recipients understand, they embrace the history, and when they read about the scholarship and apply, they are forced to acknowledge that legacy. So to our veterans or families with veterans, I would like to have a special message for you all to assure that you at least apply for benefits. We have veterans here. You know someone who's a veteran. And I'm going to give you that phone number, 1-800-698-2411. 1-800-698-2411. It's so important that our veterans are taken care of. So many of them, again, World War II, before World War II now, have served this country when their country didn't serve them. So please, we value those connections, and which is obvious through social media and the way we interact now. And something else I learned from the military was something called buddy checks. And that's a buddy check in the military we call them battle buddies, or somebody that you had to check in with, because as we navigated challenging environments, we want to make sure that our team was okay. So let's, start doing that. That's a simple act of kindness and service. So in closing, I'd like to leave you with a quote from Dr. King when it comes to repairing a legacy, repairing the record and building connections. Dr. King said, take the first step in faith. You don't have to see the whole staircase, just take the first step, because that first step may be the catalyst for change and a strong move towards repairing the record. So thank you for your time, and I appreciate you all listening to me tell my stories and just the impact of the 6888 and, of course, my military service. So thank you. Yeah, he's my mic.
We're taking a moment. We need to do a few technical things. Good evening. I am Tasha Hawthorne. I am the Dean of Pearson College. I see some of my students out. I see you. I see you. It's lovely to see you. I see some of my students here tonight. I'm also a lecturer in Black Studies. First, I want to thank Colonel Cummings for sharing her stories and wisdom with us tonight. And we thank many of you for submitting questions in advance. Hello out there. I'm delighted to welcome Bab Rawls-Ivy to lead us in conversation with Colonel Cummings. Many of you know Babs from her work in the New Haven community, including as producer and co-host of Love Babs, Love Talk on WNHH 103.5, and the editor-in-chief of the Inner City News. So Babs, here we go. Let's welcome Babs. Thank you for being here.
She and I were talking, and we realized this is not cute shoe weather. So just. She's on the
Okay.
water bottle.
No, this is, I got mine with me.
So we're gonna swap. Here you go.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Well, thank you all for being out in this cold weather and allowing me to have this, what I hope to be a rich conversation, which I know it'll be rich, girl. There's nothing more than I like to do to sit and talk with folks. Only thing missing is cocktails. Put that on your on your list, Yale. Thank you to the Schwartzman folks for inviting me. Thank you, Dory Dumas, for the NAACP, and everybody in this room who are here. It is such a pleasure.
Thank you.
To meet you. And I was calling her Colonel. She was like, no, call me Edna. I was like, oh no, girl. I like calling this black woman Colonel, and I'm going to just keep calling it. So you grew up in a military family.
I did.
Was that the sole inspiration for you joining the military? Like who said yes or no in your house? Like, did your parents say, no, I don't want you to do that. We want you to do something else. Or did you just how did you make this decision?
Well, it was interesting. My father was in, so I mentioned that I joined the family business. My dad was with the 82nd Airborne, and he just died at 98 in August.
Wow.
Yeah, he was World War II occupation force, served sometime right after the Korean War ended, 2 tours of Vietnam and all that stuff. And I saw women in the military, and so when I mentioned to my father that I was going to join, he said, absolutely not. Because now I get his opposition because he grew up in the era with the 6888 and the stereotypes that were associated with women being in the military. But I said, yeah, but Dad, I can be an officer, and that's the only way he allowed me to join, because going to college, that wasn't a conversation. I had to go. He didn't care where I went, I just had to go. But so when I told him that I could go to college, become an officer, he gave me his blessing.
Okay. And so you get into the military, and do you immediately love it? Do you hate it? Did you think it was a good decision? Like, when did you know you had arrived?
That is a very good question. It took me a while to realize that, because when you're on the outside looking in, it's a lot different. I think the first time, I write in my book that I used to practice writing Second Lieutenant Edna Cummings, because you just think from when I started college, that was the year women could get credit cards, 1974. The laws were passed then to prohibit institutions from discriminating against women. Some women in certain states could get it, but it wasn't universal. So that was the lens and the environment, and it was still the Women's Army Corps. So separate, not necessarily equal for women. And I think it hit me when I was at Fort Rucker in Lower Alabama. Fort Rucker is near Dothan, Troy. I was at the place where they train helicopter pilots. And when privates, black privates, would just stare at me and said, I didn't know they made y'all. that was a moment I said, okay, this is a little bit bigger than me, because I was a novelty. Nobody knew what to do with women. Nobody knew what to do with a black woman officer, and I was usually the only woman, the only black, and it was just, so I knew I had arrived at something. It wasn't the way it was like in the books and all, but theory versus practice.
So I'm struck by this because, oftentimes when you're the first and the only, and even in 2028, 2026, we're still seeing the first and the only in places. How did you, I don't want to say how you survived it, but how did you survive it? What kept you centered on your goal of this adventure? Like, how did you stay grounded?
I called my daddy a lot.
Okay.
I really did. And I guess it was a sense, even though I was the only, maybe on this installation, like at Fort Rucker, there were 3 black female officers there. And there were a lot of black officers going through flight school, and at that time, the failure rate was high. So we'd get together, and there were a lot of professional organizations, within the military that supported us. So we found our network, we found that connection, and we built, that connection. And just from support, and I actually got out for a while, and then came back in.
Oh, okay.
Right, I did have a break. I stayed in the reserves, and then when, I stayed in for about close to 5 years, and I got married, decided, okay, this dual military couple is not going to work. He was Army Airborne Ranger, doing great things. I'm like, okay. Because the Army, the military teaches you how to be superheroes. I mean, we leap tall buildings with a single bound. It's called rappelling. We can walk on water, if it's frozen, navigate, and unfortunately, dodge speeding bullets. I mean, literally. So that superheroes, so that's what the Rangers and Airborne was. And so we just knew, starting a family. But then he died unexpectedly. I was a widow at 32 with 2 children. And oddly enough, I came back in the military because my friends at the time said, do not go back to your mother's house, because that's what happens when tragedy hits. You go back to mama and you cry and you just regroup for several years until, people are tired of you. So that's what I planned to do, but a lot of my friends said, do not do that. You're older, you're more mature, you have some rank now. It's not going to be like it was when you graduated from college at 21, 22. So I came back in. And plus, I didn't want to start at the bottom, because I applied for civilian jobs, and I didn't have that civilian experience. So when I came back on active duty, within a year, I got promoted to major.
Wow. So that's a big step.
Yes.
You're out and then you come back in, because it sounds like you really wanted to have your own independence.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Now, I'm going to ask, are your children in the military?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
No.
And so you just said no? You didn't invite them?
I
didn't
invited
entertain it?
them, but they just were not interested.
Okay.
I think we moved around quite a bit with me. We moved around quite a bit. Once I moved 4 times in 6 years, and they just...
And they said, we just want some roots.
Exactly.
Okay. So I'm gonna fast forward to 2015 when you're I heard you talking about surfing the web, and the 6888 popped up in your feed, and you hadn't heard of them before.
Right.
And so you could have just ignored that. What made you take that on?
What's interesting, strictly vanity reasons, and I'll tell you why. Her name was Charity Edna Adams. And then, that's number one. Then I read about this black woman, black colonel named Edna, who sometimes said things that she wished she wouldn't have, because in the movie you heard her say, over my dead body. That really happened. Now, the dialogue prior to that probably, or the monologue that Kerry Washington did, that was probably Charity Adams' thought process, but she actually told a white general, over my dead body. Majors don't talk to generals that way. So, but her story just inspired me, and then I started delving deeper, and the challenges she had in the 40s were some of the challenges I experienced in the 80s and 90s and beyond. So, same challenges, different era. So that story connected with me. So it was a group of us. We started out raising funds for a monument. We went on to the documentary. I took on the Congressional Gold Medal, and the story just continued to grow.
Now, the Black Press was covering this, because I work for the Black Press.
Okay.
And so we were covering, there's like 100, a little more than 100 Black papers in this country. And so we were all carrying this story.
Oh, wow, thank
way
you.
before,
Right.
white media was carrying it. And so we watched going to Congress and making the case for it. We saw the pictures of some of the living at
thank
that
you.
particular time. There were
Right.
pictures. And then when they actually got the medals, So we have been following this story from day one. Were you surprised when they wanted to make it a film? Like, did you see that as a possibility?
Yes, because several production companies were considering making that into a film, but what's the beauty of being self-sustaining, you don't have to ask permission. And so I'm just grateful for Netflix, because Netflix enabled that story to go to a much wider audience, even though the Black Press, and one of the members of your Black Press, the Afro-American newspaper out of Baltimore, had a daughter in the 6888, Vashti Murphy. And Vashti Murphy wrote stories about her time in France and sent them back for her father to publish. So yes, and plus, had it not been for the Black Press, we wouldn't have gotten the Congressional Gold Medal. Because when I did the research, the Senate was easy. Senator Jerry Moran from Kansas, that's home of the 10th Cavalry Buffalo Soldiers. His father was a World War II veteran. He says, hey, you all kept my parents together. Passed the Senate twice. The House, I had to establish constituency. And that means members in the House of Representatives wanted to know, were in the women from my district. And I had a handful. The Afro newspaper back then would list what church you went to, your home address, your parents' name. And there was one article that listed 738 of the first contingent by city and state. So because of the Afro newspaper and Dr. Francis Tony Draper, I was able to establish that constituency. And that got us over the hump with the House of Representatives.
This is such an amazing story, because to see Black women do this work of correcting, repairing history,
Right.
And sharing the story, and this is such a good story for everybody to sort of feel good. And I don't know if the movie did it justice or not. I love the movie. I love the way that they centered these characters, and they were full characters, and you got a sense of who they were and all of that. If you could make it again, were there things that they left out that you thought, should have been pivotal to the story?
Well, what I understand is that it's difficult to condense a story like that into 2 hours. And I just think the way it was represented, it captured the essence of the 6888, and so many family members didn't know about their 6888 family member until the movie, because they pressed pause and looked for their relative's name. So I just think, since that story was based on an article written by Kevin Hemel, and one of my friends, he's a historian, for Lena King, I think it did a great job in capturing the essence of the 6888 and hopefully allowing people to dig deeper into the truth, to real history. We also have a documentary that's on Tubi and Prime that we did in 2019 that has some interviews with the women.
So this climate we're in now, Colonel, where there is a lot of erasing of Black history, and it seems to be targeted a lot at black military personnel, black military. There's a lot of erasing of history. What do you make of that? Do you have thoughts about that, or do you, I mean, you have a great spirit about let's stay connected to each other and let's be together and let's move forward. But it can't escape you of this directed attempt to erase history.
Right. But I think it's a great opportunity because something about the history is challenging and making people uncomfortable. And that is causing people to get curious. So I just think there's so many opportunities now, especially the way books are published. I mean, you can self-publish. I actually self-published a derivative document from my book that lists the names of the black men buried in Normandy. Because everyone's talking about the 688, I got permission from the publisher. I'm like, is it okay if I publish this? I just self-published, a guide to the black graves at Normandy. So I think it's a great opportunity. And then you're not tied to an institution. Mm-hmm. Because between social media, self-publishing, I think the sky's the limit. But it just takes that courage to step out to share those stories.
Now, do you think you are done with uncovering these stories?
Oh, absolutely not. I cut my speech some because there's so many stories, and my passion, black women from World War II, I found so many stories. I'm just intrigued by W. Johnson now. If you get a chance, look up W. Johnson and watch her movies. She became a civil rights lawyer after World War II. And actually, I'm working on a project now to talk about some of the family members in the 688 and how they impacted the community. And I give the example of a Millie Dunn Vesey in Raleigh who marched with Dr. King. And there's a post office named in her honor. So there's so many stories, not only about the 688, but just about black women during World War II that I'm just fascinated about.
Well, I can't wait to dive into this book. It's a beautiful looking book. Mm-hmm. I can't, thank you, Dory, for grabbing it for me. So they're telling me to get off the stage.
I know we could talk forever. I
will sit here like it's my porch, and somebody will run us a cocktail and we'll talk some more. Mm-hmm. But for the interest of this university, we have to leave. Okay. So I want you to say something encouraging to this body of folks, because we are under it at the moment. We are under it for the weather. We are under it politically. We are under it economically. And you seem so hopeful, a very calm hopefulness. Give us some of that.
Zen. It's just, it goes back to looking for the opportunities. There's always an opportunity. In the military, if I may, we always say ignore the chatter, because there's a lot of noise and information, and some of it is useful, but some of it is not, and is detrimental to your purpose and your passion. So I just like to encourage people to stay focused in your purpose and your passion and look for those opportunities. I didn't say it was easy, and so I have to be pleasant, because you didn't want me to come here like, oh, the sky is falling, don't do it. But yeah, just share your stories. Sometimes when you step back, and one thing I like about writing, it's a way to think. And so when you talk to your family members, or if you think about your life, just think about those top 5 things that you're really proud of, because everyone in here has done something and has accomplished something that no one else has. And you don't even give yourself credit. And regardless of who you are, what age you are, I see some, young students here. Thank you for coming. You've done something great that no one else has. Right now, you're the only person in the world sitting in that chair for this moment. And that's pretty spectacular, especially considering the weather. So so there's some greatness, there's some great stories, and just focus on that for your source of strength. And that's what I do a lot, meditation, but just the greatest love of all is inside of you, tap into that. And that to me is a force multiplier. In other words, when things don't seem to be going so well, kind of like falling to 688. And they helped a lot because I watched the movie with the 104-year-old 6888 veteran. She said, whatever you saw in the movie, it was worse. She said, they said things worse than that to us. 140, she talked through the whole movie. Major Fannie McClendon from Arizona, she turns 106 this year. And she would say, yep, they said things worse than that to us. So when you hear something like that, and the women said, we want to take care of our troops. And sometimes when you take care of others, back to my point about service to others, when you're feeling bad, do something good for somebody else. Because there's somebody else in worse condition than you could ever be. So that kind of keeps me going.
Well, thank you.
Thank
you
you
for this conversation.
Well, thank you.
I enjoyed
Appreciate
it.
it.
Thank you.
So that was a lot. That was fun, actually. Thank you very much for, for being here. So thank you, Colonel Cummings, and thank you, Babs Rawls Ivy. You are a really amazing interviewer there. So thank you very much. And I want to thank also the members of the New Haven and Yale communities who are with us tonight and with us online. And another thanks to the program committee who thought this up and made sure that this happened. So thank you for an inspirational evening. Now, as we head home tonight, this evening, first of all, be careful. But I also want to make sure that we carry not only Dr. King's spirit, but the spirit of Colonel Cummings, because that was really, really helpful for us to get some of that. Thank you for asking that question. And so think about his and her legacy, and then ask ourselves, what can we do, however small, to continue what we learned today? Maybe it's helping a neighbor, maybe it's just standing up for what you believe, maybe it's simply raising up somebody who's been overlooked. But whatever it is, just have the patience and the time to be able to do it. And I want to thank you in advance for that, and thank you for showing up tonight. Have a good night. Thank you.